And welcome back, Divas, to OK Diva, episode 4.
Episode 4, girl. Pride Month.
Part 2.
Part 2.
On the last week of Pride Month, too.
The last week of Pride Month.
Yeah.
Girl, let's celebrate June. One last time. You know, they took it away from the Americas, but they can't take it away from the rest of us.
Clock that tea.
Clock that motherfucking tea. So we're coming back into the 70s.
Yeah, 70s.
Alright, so coming back to Camp Inc. Camp Inc. is, in 1970, it's the first Australian political organisation to stand up for same-sex orientated men and women in Sydney. And it's camp. It's camp. This is where we start reclaiming the word.
No, I just saw the tagline.
We've come out of your closet to wish you a Merry Christmas. I know they were iconic. All these people are real Australians who came out on the front cover and risked themselves. A lot of them lost their jobs and their lives.
And their lives.
CAMP stands for Campaign Against Moral Persecution, which, you know, very cleverly mocks, reclaims CAMP, not mocks.
Campaign Against
Moral Persecution.
Yeah, okay.
Which is so clever, right? So clever.
Wow.
I'm so impressed by them. So, a few months later, after the founders released the first issue, it became like the main source of information for queer people in Australia, and it created a sense of community, and people started to flood to Sydney, and it all started to happen, and it started to bring attention to all these queer people issues, right? Of like us deserving our space, and, you know, wanting to have our space. Girl, let us live. And that's what they were set out to do. So this is the two founders of Camp Inc. Oh, so one of the founders here is Peter Bonesall Boone, who was sacked because of them releasing this this magazine. And there was a huge protest outside the St. Clement's Church, disrupting their Sunday session, where they wouldn't tolerate the fact that he was sacked because of his sexuality, right? Like, it was one of the most widely reported beginning demonstrations of the gay rights movement in Australia. So they released this magazine, they made themselves known, they all started losing their jobs, and they all started to stand up.
Wow.
Hello?
Hibachi Benihana Teriyaki.
So this is some of their covers. There's so many covers, but I wanted to include these three because the first one, I love this. That's Brisbane Hall. Now that's why I wanted to include the second one, because that's Brisbane Hall. And I also really like the fact that, you know, it's in the middle of the 70s and we've got already this, it's celebrating men, women, people of colour, queer
like
people.
Jinx Monsoon.
It kind of does look like Jinx Monsoon. On a note of people looking like people, I picked this last one here on the far right because it looks like Donald Trump.
Wait, he might get cancelled.
No, I just thought it was funny. I was like, let's kill him. Anyway, I hate that man. So, in the 70s, from what I've been looking into with Australia, is that there was a lot of movement towards targeting the liberals, which I find really interesting, and it brought up this kind of thing where I was thinking, like, this is really smart, right? Like, Labor's probably already kind of like leaning towards them, so they are fighting for the people who are opposed to them most to recognize them. And I kind of really loved that concept, and it really kind of like just hit me in the face a little bit of going like, I feel like I always end up leaning towards the people who are already kind of working with us. And maybe it's time to try and get the people who don't get us to get us more.
Yeah.
And
Clock it.
right? And so what they started to do is they used this radical attention-grabbing street protest, and they were doing it a lot. They were doing it outside headquarters, the ABC. They did it outside the ABC, and over its refusal to to put out programs about homosexuality. I don't know if you know this as well, but in the 70s, Australia had the very first like out queer couple on a soap opera, And so it really did mark this like point in time where Australia was really starting to like take charge a little bit, and people started to stand up.
They took charge,
Girl,
bitch.
we were leading a lot of. We were the first country to do a lot of representation things.
This makes me so happy.
Yeah, right. And a lot of Camp's magazine work were encouraging people to come out of the closets and engage visibly with the public during late night shopping, which I thought was so iconic, right? They're all coming out into the main streets of Sydney with late night shopping when everyone's there, and they're just going up to people going, I'm gay, let me talk to you about it. Let me make you understand why this is
That
okay.
would be confronting as fuck, and I love it.
Right? Like, they were just flooding the streets with these balloons, with all these people. Like, this was their peaceful protests. We were going out into the streets when they knew everyone was going to be there.
They do what the Christians do now. They did.
No, not the religious marketing. Not the religious marketing stinks. That's so funny. I never thought of it like that.
Have you heard about your friend Jesus Christ?
Girl, have you heard about your best friend? He's a fag.
You know, your neighbor might be gay.
Did you know your husband might be gay?
I can see the way he's looking at me.
Girl, that's giving lavender. So, oh fuck, I had to finish the last one. Yeah, okay, never mind. That's literally fine. So
We literally are only halfway through.
So this is where some of Camp and Australia's rebellious graffiti comes in, and they started graffitiing everywhere.
Gay is great.
Gay is great.
It's
and
so
lesbians,
creative.
and lesbians are lovely. But they kept it simple because
Yeah.
people were thinking
GG.
it's bad, and it's not nice.
GG.
And they were just changing the narrative.
How dare you assume
And
I'm
Camp started.
heterosexual?
Period. Now, we started
I
putting
want
out
that.
these pins everywhere. Camp Inc. started putting out these pins everywhere. And people were wearing them everywhere. And look how creative they are. Gay love and the Coca-Cola sign. Like, I love these. And there's so many of them. And you can see, obviously, this lovely lady here wearing a whole handful of them.
Unions are full men too.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, it's that intersectionality
Come
between
out.
suffragettes, the civil rights
That's our
movements, the
diva
queer
moral of the
movements.
day. Come out.
Come out.
It's Pride Month. It's 2025.
Be glad to be gay, girl.
As long as it's safe, of course.
Girl, I love the poof one. It's the poof. I kind of want that.
It's so funny.
So this is in the streets of Sydney, with a lot of these protests were happening with these two lesbian filmmakers who are hugging, and I wanted to include this because obviously I'm a filmmaker, right? So I love to see that they're out here, and we have just always been here doing this shit, taking charge.
Next.
So in 1972, queer activists were participating in Sydney's annual May Day parade and were protesting as part of this, and it started a lot of these movements. And in 1978,
24th of June.
on the 24th of June, Sydney joins the Day of International Gay Solidarity, which included a morning march through the Sydney, an afternoon forum led by gay rights pioneer Dennis Altman, an evening street parade, or Mardi Gras on Oxford Street. And this Mardi Gras parade ended in police violence.
Okay, first Pride Month.
Yeah. You can see here all the activists standing against this army of police, which is taken on the same day. And 53 activists were beaten and arrested in this parade. Yeah. This really sparked widespread activism. And
I bet it would.
Yeah, it really...
Horror.
Yeah, it really started to call for gay law reform. And
That.
this was happening big time in Australia. Like, we were really going in for it. Like, we had Mardi Gras. Like, even think about that. We are internationally known for our gay celebration parade. Like, it's really coming... It's really, like, this is where it's happening. Now, this is Harvey Milk. We're doing a tribute to Harvey Milk. It was the first openly queer elected official in California. So, actually, one of the very first elected officials anywhere in the world. And he fought against a lot of this anti-LGBT sentiment that started rising up in the 70s. I think Anita Bryant, now I don't know this woman, I don't want to know this woman, but I'm pretty sure she is the really gross actress who was like extremely homophobic and did like, she started these campaigns that really were the driving force behind the anti-gay movement. And he played a key role in defeating a lot of these initiatives to ban gay teachers. He performed a lot of powerful coming out speeches to try and promote people coming out and create visibility.
Wow.
And he obviously received a lot of frequent death threats. And he iconically said, if a bullet should ever enter my brain, let that bullet destroy every closet door. And God, these people, like, they really fought for us. Unfortunately, on November 27th of 1978, he and the Mayor George Mascone were assassinated. But his legacy inspired many people to come out, and it started the Milk Foundation, which is a really iconic queer foundation in the Americas. But these people really went through it, and they really fought for us. So this is Joyce Geek, who was a member of camp in Sydney, and in the 50s and 60s, before joining camp, she travelled through Europe to seek counselling for her same-sex feelings, and she later releases a book called Shadow and Substance. And I just would like to quickly read a quote from her book that she wrote, because as I was like going through and finding these people, like, this was one of the very first books to kind of dive into the queer experience from a queer person's perspective without demonizing it. And it's by camping, so obviously it's having this really big impact by, camp in Australia. So to begin with, perhaps I should stress how spontaneously I first became aware of my depth for affection for other women. I was still in adolescence. I'm going to read it off here so I can... I was still in adolescence, and contrary to most popular idea, I was neither seduced by anyone older than myself, nor in a position to weigh what pattern of loving I wished to follow. It had never occurred to me that I would not follow the usual one. I'd never heard of homosexuality at the time, and I first fell in love, and so far as I can remember, I had no knowledge of its existence as an emotional pattern of life. I can remember now, 30 years later, the joys and sorrows of the completely overwhelming love I felt, and how very hard it was to try not show it and talk about it. And I just thought that was really beautiful, right? Like, it's a queer person just really
Coming alive. Like,
this whole opinion of, like, being, like, seduced by some older queer person was the reason why younger people were coming out to... Like, there was this whole stigma that, like, the only reason you'd end up gay is if an older person seduced you into being gay. That was a huge belief for a long time. Like, I mean, I think people even to the 2000s were still believing this at points. Like, it's just... This is another quote. Now, behind this quote is a picture I found in Goma in Brisbane, and it's this drag artist in the 70s holding up, saying it feels great to be a fairy. And this quote is also one that I found as I was going through it, which I love. I just love this quote. They call us queens, the women lesos and the men poofters. They try to insult us with these words, but we're not easily put down. Most books say bad things about us, but then we didn't write them. We wrote this one to try even things up a bit.
Wow. Chills.
And it's quotes from the 70s, and this is it. Like, queer people, we start saying shit, we start speaking up, and it's like, how about you let us talk for a moment? How about you let us tell you how it's like to be in our bodies and in our lives?
Yeah, so we can silence people.
Yeah, how about shut up and stop speaking for us? Now, this is the Les Girls, who I mentioned before. They started in the 60s in Australia, and they were a famous drag group. And Australia's always had really iconic, like, drag performers. We've had, obviously, a very complex history with it and the ongoing criminalization of it, but this famous drag troupe featured Carletta, who was one of the first openly trans actors in Australia who performed on a show called Number 3 in 1973. This is also the one that featured the openly gay character in like a relationship in a soap opera worldwide. And despite these representations often leading to homophobic attacks either on the what's the word? What would you call the ABC or like not Channel 9 or
A television network?
Yeah, networks. On homophobic attacks on either the networks or the people being represented. It was rather common in Australia throughout the late 20th century to have a little bit of representation here and there. Well, not majorly common, but a little bit. I mean, you even get like, I can't believe I didn't include Barry. God, what's his last name? Barry. Who performed as Edna? Purple wig, famous drag. Oh my god, I need to put that. How about that? Anyway, this is Divine. I can't believe I didn't put Barry in here.
That's great.
Oh, I'm gonna lose my mind.
That's crazy.
So Divine is one of these huge probably the first famous drag queen in the world. Mm-hmm. Like before RuPaul. Divine Divine is iconic. Like she said, I live for filth. Like she's fucking iconic. She collaborated with John Waters on 9 films, including she was in Hairspray in 1988, and she revolutionized drag. And a lot of drag, as we know, was very traditional glam, like let's be a woman, let's do this, let's do that. But she was in
the
favor
Godzilla
of
drag queen.
She was quoted as the Godzilla of drag queens.
That's crazy.
And she was a pioneer of filth as well. Like she stood for this whole
Damn.
idea of everything that society frowns upon, revel in it. And, you know, she pioneered an aesthetic that inspires a lot of modern day performers. I mean, you can look at her and you can see Trixie in her, you can see Mistress in her. And she was the first famous drag queen. She was on a lot of shows. She was iconic and she changed. She was a pioneer. She's probably one of the most iconic pioneers in this whole PowerPoint. I love Divine. Oh, love Divine. So now we get to Ballroom. I love Ballroom. Ballroom.
Some rooms for your balls.
The ballroom scene has existence in the 1800s, which I mentioned before, but it really took place in the 80s.
Like this version of Ballroom?
This version of Ballroom.
Okay.
As we come to know it in Pose, as Paris is Burning, as in, you know, Madonna's Vogue. Like, this is where Vogue comes from. Vogue comes from the ballroom scene in the 80s. It's, you know, all these queer people would compete in these balls where they would have to dress up in themed categories and they would have to walk and they would have to dance. You know, it's giving Butch Queen, it's giving Femme Queen, it's all those categories that, you know, they even say now in queer lingo. Like, this is where queer lingo comes from. This is where literally slay, like all of it, down to the most basic queer lingo is pretty much a queer language from Ballroom. And, you know, it's dwindled out now 40 years later into the pop zeitgeist, and we all say it as like day-to-day words, and it's just baffling to me that it all comes from the tiny little ballroom scene in Harlem, New York in the 80s, and now it's everywhere, and it defines a lot of us as a group in the world's eye, you know?
Yeah.
And they would compete for trophies and cash, and they would form, you know, these families and these houses. And this is where the idea of chosen family comes from. Because they would form these houses where the mothers or the fathers of the house, who were normally these iconic trans women or these huge gay guys, like these powerhouses who would run these houses, and they would compete for House of the Year, and they would look after their family, and it was this whole, like, they would look after one another, and it was just this is where, like, the idea of, like, chosen family and community really comes from. And it's like, it's just beautiful, right? Like, without the ballroom scene, we would be in a whole different place. I think the ballroom scene really is the reason why we get a lot of the luxuries we get today. Like, I mean, in 1990, Madonna released a song Vogue, which
Strike a pose.
Vogue comes from ballroom. Like, that's where it is. That's one of the first moments where we're celebrated. We're not just seen or watched or learnt about, we're celebrated.
Yeah.
Like, Divine wasn't really celebrated, unfortunately. She is now, in retrospect. At the time, she probably wasn't. It wasn't. I mean, if you look at the media, she wasn't really.
Yeah.
Vogue was celebrated.
No matter what.
And it changed everything. It introduced the world to ballroom. It highlighted the dance of them. It brought about this documentary, Paris is Burning. And not only that, people would then go and watch Paris is Burning, and it became an iconic piece of queer media. And it stands as a powerful tribute to our unapologetic and resilient spirit of the queer community at that time, in the face of such hate and discrimination, still being their authentic selves. And one of the major parts of that was Venus Extravaganza. Extravaganza is one of the main founding houses of the ballroom scene. By the end of this movie, unfortunately, she was murdered in the documentary, and it revealed to the world literally just how the fear that exists and undertones the entire movie against their authenticity and their resilience and the fact that they're not going to stop living for anyone. There's always this fear that undertones it because of the fact that there is so much hate crime, and then it happens, and it was shockwaves, right? So in Australia in the 80s, New South Wales finally outlaws discrimination of homosexuality on the basis of actual perceived queerness. So that means obviously they had the right to work again.
Yay!
This is a photo of Mardi Gras in the 80s.
Yes! Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras. The legislation around homosexuality was lifted in 1984.
That was like a triple one.
In New Zealand.
3 for 1.
There was a Reform Act, and it was legalised in 1986. So at this point, we've got New South Wales and the ACT by the 80s where it's legal. It takes another 10 years after the ACT legalises it.
That's crazy.
And then finally in 1987, it gets decriminalised in Western Australia. We get 3 states. This is Doris Fisher, a leading figure in Sydney's drag group Sylvie and the Synthetics, who then she later moves to San Francisco and becomes a really big queen there. But she is, like, she has a lot of media around her where she talks about the queer scene in Sydney. And I found this really interesting, and I actually didn't know this before doing this, where the term tranny was actually coined by Sydney drag queens and trans women in the 70s, before it was then taken from us, I say. I'm just using our community as a whole here. Please be, I'm not...
From the trans community.
And I mean, it was for drag queens as well.
Cool slut central.
I love this photo of her.
That's so sad.
Unfortunately, then, yeah, it was taken by society and started to mean something else. But before that, it was a term created by drag queens.
Alright, so just really quickly, I would love to go through 2 of the most, I would probably say some of the most famous Australian drag artists, or kind of queer-coded artists of, the later half of the 20th century. So, funnily enough, both of these artists originated from Melbourne, which, I mean, I feel like a lot of Australia's greatest queer artists come from Melbourne, which is such a crazy, take, but also, isn't, I'm pretty sure Troye Sivan's from there. I mean, at least he has a house.
I thought it was from Victoria. That is Melbourne. I'm too tired for this.
And, I mean, Lazy Susan's from Melbourne. Where's Courtney from?
I meant Perth.
Perth. Oh, where's Courtney Act from? Troye Sivan is not from Perth. There's no way Troye Sivan's from Perth.
Melbourne would make sense for him.
Okay.
Victoria would make sense for him.
Anyway, so these are two of some of our biggest drag artists. First is Dame Edna.
Oh, per.
You know Dame Edna,
Of course
right?
I do.
Okay, of course you know
Who
Dame
doesn't?
Edna. Who doesn't know fucking Dame Edna?
I knew
Now-
Dame Edna before I knew what drag queen was.
No, literally, I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, this is probably my very first introduction to drag ever.
Look it.
Ever. Because, like, I remember being, like, 4 and 5 and, like, going and picking my dad's newspapers up for him. And she would be on the front covers so often.
Yeah.
She was fucking hilarious. Now, like, Barry Humphries, though, I don't actually believe he is queer. Like, I'm pretty sure he's straight.
Queen.
But
Metamorphosis.
Maddie Morphosis! Girl, and they have the nerve to tell Maddie Morphosis she doesn't deserve to be a drag queen.
For real, for real.
Girl, that bitch, that pisses me the fuck off. Maddie is hilarious. Like, I love her so much.
Who
Anyway,
cares?
Dame Edna, or, you know, Barry, was in so many different shows and movies, and you know his impact. Like, this bitch has been, like, is a staple of Aussie humor internationally. I mean, this
Clock it,
bitch
right?
is literally clock it. Like, loved in all through the UK, all through the Americas, especially the UK. The Brits fucking love this motherfucker. I mean, literally, when my nan came over like a couple of months ago, she was like, "Oh, we saw Barry just before he died. We went to so many of his shows. We loved him. I'm so sad he died."
The British.
That was my worst British accent to date. Action. I sound like Lasha Minnelli.
You sound like Anaconda.
Oh my god, that is crazy. Okay, well, look, a diva, an absolute fucking diva. The bitch was performing in clubs and comedy clubs, doing all that. I don't know if Dame Edna was really ever in like drag clubs or whatnot, but definitely comedy clubs. Definitely a comedy character.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess it does kind of raise questions around like, how much was it mocking and how much was it
If your career was that rooted into Australian culture, I fear it couldn't be that mockable.
It couldn't, right?
No,
I
that's
mean,
not
like,
right.
by nature, I feel like, especially going through so much else of this, like, Aussie history here, it's like, it's kind of pretty clear that we had a much different relationship as a country with queerness and how
I
we
agree.
perceived it.
We still do.
We still do.
Like, we clearly... Like, I know it took us longer... It took us longer to legalize marriage, didn't it?
yeah, 2016.
Yeah, so...
2017. The bill was passed in 2016.
Yeah. So... That is literally the only factor of which we have taken longer than most countries.
I mean, it did take us a long time to legalize it as well. But it's weird because it's like...
I felt like the stigma around it was kind of just...
The stigma was kind of like there, but it wasn't as hateful.
Yeah.
But it also wasn't really too accepted. But it also wasn't too, from my understanding, it wasn't too frowned upon for people to
Yeah.
joke around with their gender
Yeah.
and have fun with it a little bit.
Okay, who's this other person?
Okay, now who's this other person?
I'm so curious.
Okay,
I need to see it.
Girl, please, come on now. You have to have heard of Lee Bowery.
Oh, yes.
You know of Lee Bowery, baby.
Yes.
Baby, icon,
You
performance
clearly-
artist, club
yeah,
promoter, fashion
this-
designer, the Lee fucking Bowery.
Yeah, the person who Mimi
Mimi, I'm first. No, not Mimi, I'm first. Why did you have to bring her into the conversation? That's crazy. She doesn't deserve space in
We're
this
watching
PowerPoint.
season 3.
Okay, we are watching season 3, guys. It's so good. It's my rewatch, just to clarify, like my 4th rewatch, but
It's my
alas,
first watch.
Brock's first watch. Now, Lee Bowery is so impactful on the queerness and drag as an art form internationally. This bitch brought avant-garde fashion, drag, queerness into the forefront. They were working with, from my memory, I believe they were working with Harper's Bazaar, or they were working with so many fashion designers out there. They were on the cover of so much. They were doing so much. They changed perspectives around drag queer fuckery can be an art form. And around the time Lee Barry kind of like really took off into the 90s, we saw this huge major wave of club kids. And club kids, you know, they had the most insane fashion. Have you seen some of those old like news channels where they like talk shows where they would bring club kids on and whatnot?
Yeah, I think
I've shown you one or two.
Yeah,
but like,
yeah.
It was a huge wave, and it's probably like there's always been the rebellious niche groups of every kind of generation, but club kids were really where that kind of like they pushed the boundaries, and a lot of that was built off the back of the kind of like, I mean, you can literally see in so much of Lee Barry's fashion, like it's built off what they brought into the world. And I'm pretty sure they originated the mankini as well. Not the mankini, the face kini. The mankini. Girl, not the mankini. You know a face kini?
Yeah.
You know a face kini, right? Like this?
Yes.
Where the fabric covers their face.
Yeah.
Anyway, Lee Barry, the fucking impact they had internationally. I mean, we see so many queens even across franchises, across the world, referencing them, even back to today. So it's very long lasting, and we have a very, you know, we have some hard hitters. We have some big hitters who have played in the...
And it ain't stopping.
It ain't stopping anytime soon. And anyway, love these two. Love them so much.
Lock it.
Definitely check Lee Barry's fashion out.
Well,
Absolute
was this a
fave.
side note, or was this the main note?
Baby, let's clock back in. What's up next?
I wanted to do a special tribute to RuPaul and Lady Bunny. I love RuPaul and Lady Bunny. I can't help it. I had to. I mean, they're iconic.
Yeah.
It's RuPaul and
Look
Lady
at that
Bunny.
hair. Look at that hair.
It's RuPaul and Lady fucking Bunny.
Well, go for it.
These are the next lot of famous drag queens. Hello?
Just be gentle with it.
I am. So,
Damn, if that's your version of gentle, I'm sorry for your future boyfriend. No, it's gonna be rough.
it is going to be rough, baby. So, in the... Oh, fuck me. In the 80s, Lady Bunny and RuPaul begin their drag careers together as best friends and as go-go dancers.
Well,
and
go-go
they-
dancers.
As go-go dancers.
Lady Bunny wasn't good.
So was RuPaul.
Oh, I can believe
And they star in the film Star Booty, which I thought that was so iconic because we had the Star Booty musical. I was like, they were actual films.
Tell me what you wanna do. Tell me. Just don't leave me hanging on the line. In a world so crazy and delirious, say my name, I'll be there for you, baby. If you want
I mean, anyway, RuPaul essentially is credited as Lady Bunny's drag mother because she put her in drag for the first time. And in 83, they moved to New York, become key figures at Pyramid Club, and they start to do their rises to fame, right? In 1985, Lady Bunny founded Wigstock, which, I don't know, you probably don't know too much about Wigstock, but it's this huge drag, like, it's like Mardi Gras in New York, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, it was while it was going on. And it was a landmark outdoor drag festival, and it offered a lot of visibility during the AIDS crisis. And then we come into the 90s, Lady Bunny becomes she's a nightlife. She does Wigstock. She does the Wigstock, the movie. But this is also this is where RuPaul hits the mainstream with her major song, Supermodel, You Better Work. You cover girl. Once upon a time, there's a little black girl from the Wooster Projects. Cue Trixie Mattel. And RuPaul has her own show. She does how much RuPaul does. And then she goes on to obviously do Drag Race. But then coming into the 2000s, they're still friends. Bunny comes on to Drag Race a couple times, and she's a judge on Drag U. And then she in 2018 she does a Wigstock revival with Neil Patrick Harris, because Wigstock stopped in the mid 2000s.
Yep, couldn't have said that 10 times.
Whoa, that hurt.
Gentle.
Okay, this is the AIDS crisis. Which, it needs its own section.
Yeah, but damn, we really just went from to...
Well, I mean, it's not nice. As much as they're celebrating, it's going to be visceral because it's...
Anyway, into
It's our darkest hour, right? Like, so once again, we reclaimed the pink triangle in the Silence Equals Death campaign. In 1981 is when the first official documentation of the AIDS crisis, of AIDS, is documented. Before it was known as AIDS, it was known as GRID, which is gay-related immune deficiency.
My God.
It was termed gay cancer by a lot of the Christian community-acquired immune dysfunction, and gay compromise syndrome. In 1982, it was officially termed AIDS. In 1983, Reverend Jerry Falwell calls AIDS a gay plague, which reflects the widespread stigma that was created through the 70s through a lot of those anti-gay campaigns. And it really feels like this is a moment in time where a lot of the work that was done in the 70s took a step back. And this was used as ammunition for why we deserve to be stigmatized even more again.
Just scaring people into
Scaring
thinking we're
people.
horrible people.
Literally, that there's a disease
That we are a disease.
that we are a disease.
Wow. God, we are so lucky.
In 1987, the ACT UP Foundation is founded, and it's in a response to the government's inaction. In America, there wasn't any action being done by the government towards AIDS. It's not the same in Australia, luckily, but it was like that in America. ACT UP's first protest resulted in 17 arresteds, and it marked the beginning of a very bold and public activism against AIDS. Between 1981 and 1996, over 100,000 AIDS-related deaths were reported in the US, and this reached the millions globally. In 1990 alone, 336,387 people died from it in that 1 year alone, and worldwide. Yeah.
Moment of silence. Continue.
Yeah, it was really, I really wish we had more of our elders, right?
I do too.
Like, it does really suck.
Yeah.
And
God, I forget.
I just can't imagine, like, just like thinking about my own friend group, right? Like, and how many people in it are queer,
Yeah.
and just knowing that, like, out of every queer person I know, maybe one of us or two of us will survive it. It's just like,
Even...
I mean, I really want to, like,
Probably even less.
probably even less. I mean, I wanted to really bring attention to how it played out in Australia. I know there was so much information and I couldn't, like...
Girl, you could have put it in tables. You could. There's so many ways to go around this, and you did it all wrong.
Stop,
Oh my
leave me
gosh! I
alone.
fear it's my time to make a PowerPoint next time.
I was getting really tired by the end.
Girl, like I am now. Go on.
I want to say every single time I ever think about AIDS, the AIDS crisis, or, you know, go into the history of it to really understand how we have the rights we have today, I haven't ever looked into what that looked like in Australia. And I did in this research, and I honestly I can't believe I'm about to say this. I was really pleasantly surprised. It actually really warmed my heart to find out that over the entire 10 years, only 16,000 cases were reported in Australia, and only 4,500 people died. Because we acted, and it was an epidemic, obviously, and it was horrible. And I wanna hope that these stats are right and it wasn't higher, because I would struggle to believe that it wasn't higher. That's still a lot of people, but
compared to
compared to
the
America,
330,000 people.
Yeah, right. Like, a government acted really quickly from 1983 when it first started to come in, and they implemented a lot of coordinated multi-sectional national responses, where they got a lot of researchers, clinicians, doctors involved, and they immediately started to do peer-based explicit HIV education
Look at all those
campaigns.
strategies.
They released free and anonymous HIV testing.
They did widespread needle and syringe programs.
Expanded methadone treatment.
Free access to AZT and later ARV treatments.
They promoted the use of condoms and safe sex.
Decriminalization and anti-discrimination legislation
For affected groups, which is, as we saw before, when they started decriminalizing it in the state, and like in our different states, in unison with this. The inclusion of sex workers and drug users in policy making as well. Like they were brought into it to figure it out and how to make it work. Like, this is so progressive, right?
Yeah, for its time.
And there was investment into it, into social and scientific
structural
research.
Medicare?
And 1984 was when Medicare was introduced, which enabled free clinical care and subsidized treatment for HIV positive Australians. Like, our free healthcare system, you look at the two different countries. One country with free healthcare and one country without, and look how many lives it saved.
Clock it.
Look how many fucking lives it saved, and that's what makes it even more heartbreaking, is the fact that entire countries around the world chose not to act in the face of something that was so easy to prevent.
The Sisters of Mercy?
And yes, in Queensland, the homophobic government in Queensland withheld the same support that the rest of the country was, but the Sisters of Mercy secretly funneled federal money to the Queensland Aid Council.
The school that I went to in Roma was founded by the Sisters of Mercy.
I know.
It's all connected.
It's
all connected.
How insane is that? Like, the
They
Sisters
knew.
of Mercy. Not even that, it's just, here you have an example of religious people who are going, it doesn't matter. That's our responsibility. Isn't to judge you. It's to support our neighbor.
Yeah.
And
love thy neighbor.
Love thy neighbor and
help.
Like, we don't want to see mass death. That goes against
everything.
Like, moral rightness. I think it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. It is beautiful. I'm very happy. This is crazy to me.
I know. It was even crazy to me, and it really just goes to show that hate isn't something that you can blame on your religion. It's something that you choose. And it costs nothing to care for one another.
Clock.
Also,
the one thing everyone knows about AIDS. Lesbians.
But they deserve their PowerPoint slide, because...
Don't make it sound like a bad thing.
They
deserve that PowerPoint slide.
They deserve it. Like, I couldn't not include this. I was excited.
Low-key, they deserve their own PowerPoint.
Girl, of course. Girl, lesbians deserve everything. I love you.
Lesbians.
In this, I wrote down it's the overlooked role, but I suppose that it kind of isn't really the overlooked role
one
anymore.
Thing everyone knows about AIDS, right? Like,
but they never used to. That's recent. Like, that's probably the last 10 years.
I mean, it's good though.
It's great, but before that, it was an unrecognized supporting role, because they were the only people who would touch us.
Legalized to get married 10 years ago.
I know, we weren't even legalized to get married 10 years ago.
Like, that's crazy. I say that a lot.
That's crazy. crazy.
It is crazy.
It's so crazy.
Anyway,
Um,
filling the void. Or filing. No, it's filling.
filling the void. Because governments delayed action and healthcare providers, doctors and nurses refused to provide care due to fear and homophobia. So a lot of these lesbian women stepped in, whether they had medical experience or not. Because obviously...
Oh my God, you're so gonna do a slide about Princess
I almost did do a slide about Princess Diana, but I didn't.
Really?
I didn't
That really
know.
shocks me. And then I thought you were gonna put a picture of yourself at the end as you was Princess Diana.
Well, I mean, a lot of people know about Princess Diana and her doing that and shaking the hands of people with AIDS. And I think that's one of the most iconic moments. And I think what I really try to do here is just try and bring attention to a lot of the stuff that isn't spoken about as much.
Spoken.
And I mean, yeah, they donated blood, and it really set a precedent for inclusion and community-led HIV care. So now we're moving on to the 90s.
The 90s.
And I wanted to point out one of our major moments in 1994.
Wait. Just before we move on from the AIDS crisis, we should just have another quick moment of silence because it is such a big picture.
I know, that was so huge, and I just jumped right out of it. I went, time to move on.
I think it's time to say, instead of a moment of silence, I'm going to take a moment to not only appreciate all the lesbians, but all the gay people, gay men who lost their lives. Not just in Australia, but all over the world, because we would not be where we are today without them.
Yeah, without the fight.
Exactly. Anyway, back to Sam.
Fuck. It's crazy. 1981 to 1996 is 15 years before the medication came out that stopped AIDS from being a life sentence. 15 years of if you got AIDS, you died.
Yep.
15 years.
And you know what? So much better now.
God, we're fucking lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, we're lucky.
And then you even see in like season 1 of Drag Race when Angina comes out and she's one of the first people to say on like on TV that she has AIDS because the stigma.
That was like 2009.
That was 2009 because the stigma was still so bad.
Yeah.
So bad. Okay. So in 1994...
Let's just quickly... Title page again.
This is the 90s. In 1994, The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert comes out, and it marks a turning point in LGBT representation film because it's the first film to show queer people with depth and dignity. It's filled with humour, heartfelt and vibrant visuals, and it follows two drag queens and a trans woman on a road trip across rural Australia. This is them performing on top of the bus.
I cannot wait to see this movie.
It's one of my favourite
I
movies.
fear this might be the most one I'm excited for when you show me.
Yeah.
Either this or Pose. Because obviously Pose was written by Ryan Murphy. Or maybe not written?
Yeah.
Produced?
I think it's directed.
I don't know. Either or. It's one of the factors. And we all know that man had a hand in Glee. And Glee is mine.
Clock it.
Well, my favourite show. I can't say it's mine, but I'm not
It's yours.
I'm not going to gatekeep like that. Like some people would, but...
You should gatekeep it.
No, because
Like
that
some people
deserves to be
would.
shared.
Period.
Anyway.
I need to finish my Glee watch. I'm going to rewatch it with you.
Okay. We will be.
So...
Maybe that's what we'll do.
This is the first film to not display us as a punchline and rather heroes. And throughout it, it shows homophobia and transphobia. And the characters resist it with wit, pride, and flamboyance. And they paint their motherfucking bus lavender and call it Priscilla.
Clock.
And halfway through the movie, someone graffitis on their bus in lavender faggot. And then they paint the whole bus lavender, which is reflective of the lavender scare, which happened, in the 70s or 80s in America, where there was this lavender scare where all these people were kicked out of government jobs because they were assumed to be queer or gay. And so it was symbolic of that. And it's obviously set against, there's AIDS happening at the moment. There's hostility in society, but
A whole lot of different things.
all of it, and it includes all of it in it, but it doesn't make it the focus point.
Because we aren't. That isn't the focus point of who we are.
No, but that had never happened before. So it really set a precedent for everything that's set to come afterwards. And it was huge. It has a stage adaptation. It was celebrated internationally and won so many awards. And it's probably one of Australia's most culturally impactful films ever made. Does this have volume?
Yeah.
This is a video of RuPaul on some show, and they ask her a question, and she goes, "Shaka Khan."
The Vivian.
Shaka Khan. And then the Vivian copy of it. Sorry, I just wanted to include that because I love this video. Anyway, so this is some of the queer media that started to come out in the 90s alongside Priscilla Queen of the Desert. We get Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, The Birdcage, But I'm a Cheerleader. I love every single one of these movies.
I haven't seen any of them.
You haven't seen any of them?
No.
Wow. I watched...
Patrick Swayze? Damn.
Yeah, girl. It was like, these are... Natasha Lyonne, RuPaul was in But I'm a Cheerleader, Robin Williams is in The Birdcage. Like, this is when we start to see, like, big names do queer things.
Yeah, let's do it.
And this is where Mardi Gras reaches
Yes!
the time. Everyone in the world starts hearing about us. We get recognized everywhere. And this is where Mardi Gras kind of turns from this is where it's kind of riot to a parade.
Yeah,
and
for real.
things get fun. I also wanted to give a shout out to Chris O'Donnell's nips in Batman and Robin 1997.
Just as hard as Sam's nips in the cold.
Because, low-key, this is queer history.
No, that was his sexual awakening.
This was
and
my
that's why.
sexual awakening, so it's queer history.
Next.
Can you tell when I stopped when I got a little bit unserious with it? This is the hangover delirium that
This was yesterday.
Yes.
You cannot blame that on the hangover delirium. At this
So-
point, you did what you said you weren't even going to do the 2000s. So you know what? Move along.
Okay, so this is Y2K. This is the 2000s. So in 2001 at the Sydney Olympics.
Wow, that
Yeah.
Oh.
This is Priscilla.
my
It's the
god.
Priscilla bus with the drag queens. So Australian drag have for a long time had these really like hard foam wigs or like kind of like structural drag.
Yeah.
That's really unique to us.
Wow,
And they represent it
That
in the-
makes sense actually for a lot of down under queens.
Yeah, right? You see it now, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And it was here in Sydney in the 2001 Olympics where the closing performance was a bunch of drag artists doing drag at the 2001 Olympics.
Purr.
So this is where it's kind of
That
going.
was at Sydney, right?
Yeah, it was in Sydney.
No, the
it's-
Olympics, was it?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Sydney Olympics. Like, it's just... we were at the forefront. We had Mardi Gras, we did the Olympics. It's all of it, right? And in the year 2000, the first ever World Pride is made in Rome. It starts in Rome, and then the second one wasn't until 2006. There's normally a few years in between, right? Wow. Each one. And the first World Pride was in Rome, which I was blown away to find out because, I don't know, I always had, from what I know of, like, from queens and queer people I've listened to, from Italy, it's still really conservative. So I was blown away to find out that they were the first country to hold World Pride. And then your mind's gonna fucking be blown. Do you know where the second one was in 2006?
I don't know.
Think about
Somewhere
the-
that's probably not accepting at all.
It's the most I'm serious, it's the most insane place.
I don't know, fucking Thailand, some shit like that.
The Gaza Strip.
Oh, what?
Yeah. Yeah. The second ever World Pride was in Gaza.
That is crazy.
My mind blew open when I found that out.
Whoa. Okay. Do you reckon they didn't know what they were doing?
Well, no, they did it there because it was so prejudiced. And they went, fuck it.
Oh,
Eat it. So I just wanted to point out some milestones in the 2001, the Netherlands is the first country to legalize same-sex marriage.
Netherlands!
The US finally strikes down sodomy laws.
Clock it.
Massachusetts is the second place in the world to do
Massachusetts!
same-sex marriage in 2004. Civil unions are legalized in the UK, and Obama signs federal hate crime laws.
Yes, Obama.
We get so much representation from the We get the L word. We get the L word, and the Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, Brokeback Mountain, Modern Family, and I believe
I want to make... Oh, no, I'm not going to say that.
No, go on.
No, I was just going to say I don't like Brokeback Mountain. And I needed to say that because I feel like it's like one piece of queer history. And I've explained to Sam why I don't like it. I think it perpetuates this idea that gay men are destined to have failing relationships.
I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily what it's meant to be representative, though. It's meant to be literally representative of what it was like being gay in the 50s.
I mean, yeah, but we are still seeing those types of gay movies being made to this year. Queer.
Okay, we can't just not acknowledge what it was like back then and
I'm
celebrate.
not denying that.
Because, I mean, Queer and Call Me By Your Name are two books made in that era. And the making them into films is celebrating queer voices from those times.
Well, Queer never had a year stamp. I think it was meant to be ambiguous when it was.
No, the Queer was a book before it was a movie.
That was when?
Since,
you didn't tell me this.
I fear I did.
Ah, well, what do I know?
I mean, I do agree that representation it has improved a lot. I mean, a lot. We can't ignore the fact that we've got good representations of queer relationships now. I mean, literally all through the 2010s we got that.
Like what?
Modern Family, Glee, Love, Simon. We get Heartstopper now. We've got a lot. Well, I mean, we could probably even have more of it. We deserve more of it. We deserve a lot. We deserve more. Actually, you know what? We could use some more good movies.
Correct. That's all I'm saying. And I don't like Brokeback Mountain because it's boring. I was bored. I fell asleep.
You fell asleep.
And then I watched it. I fell asleep and then I went back and watched it.
It's meant to be something you take in somberly. And you just listen attentively. And then you cry at the end by how heartbreaking it is.
Well, it wasn't heartbreaking. I was bored.
I was heartbroken.
I was not heartbroken. I was annoyed.
I cried for 7 hours.
I was like, you gotta be joking.
I didn't sleep all night.
Good.
I was so heartbroken.
That's so annoying.
Because it's like, all you want is for
those movies hit you way too hard.
They do, because I want to... Like, it's queer... I mean, wow, maybe that's... Okay.
You're perpetuating this idea.
Okay, shh. No, I'm not going to shush you again. Sorry. Anyway, this is Gay Marriage Roadmap. I know it's really tiny, but...
I feel less bad about nearly falling asleep before.
You fell asleep before?
I nearly did. I wonder if it's going to be in the recording.
I hate you so
much. I feel like I'm dipping off to the side.
Anyway, so this is Sasha Colby ordaining marriage as a world pride in DC this year. But Rock wanted me to talk about when gay marriages were made. So, I mean, I just wanted to do before the 2000s, but here we are in the 2000s. So in 2001 we get Netherlands, then 03 in Belgium, 05 in Spain and Canada. And you can go through them all here and see them all, but... It's not until 2017 we get in Australia, but I mean, yeah, there's a lot of...
I thought it was 2016.
2016 is when the vote was happening. I'm pretty sure 2016 was the vote.
And then 2017 was when it happened.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, that literally means we're 8 years from it.
Anyway,
I thought we were 9.
Yeah, these are the only countries in the world that have gay marriage legalized. Which is definitely
a lot less than I thought.
Definitely not that many.
Estonia? Really? That's progressive.
Malta?
Cuba?
Ecuador? Costa
I'm
Rica?
impressed with
Chile,
some of these, to be honest.
Slovenia, Cuba.
Luxembourg.
Greece. Is Italy on there?
Yeah. I think. No?
No, it's not.
Okay, I don't think this is the full list. It can't be.
No, I mean, I think it is.
Wait, no, it can't be. There has to be more.
I don't think there is.
That's sad.
It's really-
Costa Rica. I said Costa Rica. That's crazy.
I mean,
Taiwan.
we have a long way to come.
Go.
Still.
We have a go.
And
A long way to go. We've come a long way.
we have a long way to go. We've come a long way.
Are you gonna shush me again? Oh my god, Ronnie!
I'm shushing you so much. It's so bad.
It's so funny.
It's so bad.
Next slide.
Okay. Actually, before we move on, because after this it's a little bit unserious, I just wanna, like, if looking back on all this, it's like there is so much history, and there have been so much fighting, and so much progress, and I guess looking at it now and seeing how far we've come, there's an attitude now, I fear, of complacency a little bit, where we're kind of like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like as much work is being made as it could be at this point in time. And I just think that even just like looking at this list, right, just like thinking about how hard the people in the past have fought for us, it's like, I almost put this quote in here that I didn't now, but it was this quote that said, as long as there is discrimination against queer people, holding hands and walking down the street is one of the biggest forms of rebellion we can do. And
But I think we do that.
we do that. We definitely do that. Do.
I think us living our lives authentically is proving that we have come a long way, and it is showing all the people in the world that don't want us to be here.
But I mean, even look back on this, like there's people from 50 years ago that are living their lives authentically, right? And it's like, I just
were
don't-
they?
Well, they were.
But they wouldn't been able to marry the person they wanted to.
No,
They
but-
wouldn't have been able to walk down the street and
No, but they did
Hated.
anyway, right? I guess.
correct. And we still do it, but now it's more widely accepted.
Yeah,
I'm not
denying it's not more widely accepted.
No, I know. I think it's silly to say that we're not just because we're not fighting for our lives every day.
No, I'm not
mean-
saying we should fight for our lives. I'm saying
No,
that-
let me finish.
Okay.
I'm not saying that just because we're not. I'm saying just because we're not fighting for our lives every day doesn't mean we aren't progressing the movement.
I never said we should be fighting for our lives.
That's how it came across.
Oh, okay. Well, I just meant that we should still be protesting and shit.
Protesting.
Protesting. Because, like,
Protesting.
think, like, there's so many countries in the world where you still can't be yourself. And it's... I don't know. I'm just scared that we're moving backwards. Mm-hmm. But alas, that's too dark. Onto something light. But wait, one last thing.
Oh, we're on the last thing.
The last thing. In 2000 and 2007, Logo TV launches Drag Race.
What is that bottom right photo?
The bottom right photo is a photo from Drag Race Italy where a drag queen called Obama gets up on the stage on the judges panel in the middle of her lip sync for her life and points down at Priscilla, the host of Drag Race Italy, and someone had edited a gun to it. It's my favorite.
I'm so confused. Not Joella, that's a jump scare.
Joella jump scare, trigger warning. But yeah.
Wow.
That's it.
I feel like I could just do a whole episode talking about all of that information as well. You know, like, I just think it's so crazy that we just... Look, I don't necessarily think we need to do... Protest isn't the right word I'm looking for. I think everyone needs to learn more queer history about us and about,
I agree.
like, themselves. You know
who comes before you.
Exactly. Should be taught in schools.
It should be taught in schools.
Every other civil movement's taught in schools.
Right? It absolutely should be taught in schools.
Like,
But it's
literally,
not taught in schools because people still don't... It's still... There's, like, homophobia is still ripe, I fear.
that is crazy.
I fear it's still very much here.
Every other civil movement is taught in schools except
And if you tried to
queer
get this
movement.
into the curriculum, you would have so many angry people.
because it's okay as long as it's not in their face. Well, guess what?
God forbid.
We're here.
We're here.
And we're in your face.
And we're queer.
But if you're watching this, you probably love us, so... mwah.
But anyone out there who knows someone who needs to see this, send it.
Clock it. Anyway,
So,
that was us, Divas. That was massive part 2.
that was a
That was
crash
a
course in
massive
queer
part
history.
And we hope you enjoyed. We love you so much, and we will see you next week for my episode.
Ew.
Don't really know what that will be yet. Loves yous.
Well, we'll
Mwah.
figure it out. You have a long time to figure it out. Your whole trip in Cairns to figure it out.
Yes!
Girl, this bitch is going on a holiday without me. Fuck
Alright.
that hoe.
Bye, Divas.
Bye, Sheilas. Good luck.